Hello everyone, Kevin Ling from Blue Gray Mortgage. Today's conversation is about something that quietly determines whether real estate becomes freedom or frustration to an investor. Everyone talks about buying the property, almost no one talks about what happens after you buy the property. So today I'm sitting down with a professional property manager to pull back the curtain on what actually happens. Or I should say what actually protects or destroys an investor's return. We're talking about decision making, under pressure, mistakes that cost real money, and the standard elite operators refuse to compromise on. If you're an investor, a future investor, or someone who wants to build a long-term wealth the right way, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. All right, so today we have Jay Michaelik.
Hey.
From Greystone Property Management. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much, Kevin.
So a little bit about Jay. Him and I belong to the same BNI group. He worked in corporate for 20 plus years before switching over to property management. And before that, he was also a veteran for many years. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
He's a dad. He's a basketball player. He's many, many things all in one. Okay, so without further ado, let's have Jay talk about how you started in this field. Take me back to the beginning. What drew you into the property management field, and at what point do you realize it wasn't just a job?
Yeah, fair. So I would say, short answer, COVID. As you mentioned, Kevin, I was a veteran. I ETS'd out of the military 11 days before September 11th happened. And I went into the restaurant industry. I was food service in the Army. And when I got out, I made that into a career. And I climbed my way up the ladder in corporate America and was at the director level of some of the bigger corporations. And when COVID happened, I was working out of an office in Orlando for Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen. I was a director of culinary operations, and we got furloughed. And we didn't know if we were going to have a job, not what was going to happen. And it was the first time since I was 13 years old that I didn't know that I had money coming in. And I've got a family and I've got kids, and ultimately it was my time to process kind of what I wanted to do in my future. And one of the things that popped in my head was, this may be the chance to switch industries into something where I can have a quality of life. I can continue doing what I'm good at and what I enjoy, but I don't have to work the nights and the weekends and be on call and travel as much. And so I reached out to a buddy of mine, an old high school buddy, who is the CEO of Greystone Investment Group where I work. And ultimately I was reaching out to him to say, hey man, I know you've done some networking. I used to rent out the room of my restaurant for him to do networking. Who do you know that would take a chance on a guy like me? Got no college. I'm a veteran. I can lead people. I can align a team. I can scale a business. I can implement culture. I can hold people accountable. I can fix retention, any HR task. And he said, yeah, why don't you be a consultant for me? And so I actually came on board as a consultant after COVID. And my job was to work with his 4 leaders that he had in place of the 4 companies. And ultimately, very quickly, we determined that property management needed some extra love. And the person that was holding the seat had no interest in expanding and doing the things that were required. And so the challenge was then, hey, you found some problems. How about fixing them? And that's how my journey started. So in 2021, January, I officially became the property manager. And then in 2023, I got promoted to COO, and I oversee, and I still, property management is still kind of my niche and what I'm the expert in.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story.
Thank you.
So most people think that property management is about collecting rents and fixing toilets.
Yeah.
So what's the skill that actually separates an average property manager from an elite one?
Yeah, I would say probably the easiest part of the job is collecting rents and fixing toilets. I would say the true skill is communication, and specifically proactive communication and effective communication. And I would say 90% of the fires that we put out can be prevented if you're proactive. If you allow yourself to get ahead of the game, then your landlords know what's going on with their properties, your tenants know what you expect from them, your vendors understand the timelines, and that really eliminates a lot of the pain points that most people feel. And if you could avoid being reactive, then I would say that's the skill set that everybody on my team must have, is that proactiveness to stay in front of problems and anticipate them and not wait until they're a fire to handle.
Very good answer. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. What do you think is the hardest decision that you have ever made that directly impacted an investor's money? And how do you think through all that? I want to get a little deeper into your thought process.
I wouldn't say it was a hard decision, but I would say it's a hard lesson.
Okay.
Let me tell you the hardest lesson we faced. When I first started as a property manager, a little while after, you have to trust in your people, and you also have to inspect what you expect. Mm-hmm. And I knew that going in, and sometimes you get comfortable in the process, and you've seen success happen so many times that you take it for granted. And we had a landlord that we placed the tenant for, and the tenant, everything looked great, credit score, income, everything looked amazing. We placed the tenant paid rent 3-4 months, and then all of a sudden reversed the last 3 or 4 months on their credit card, and every dollar that they had paid us got reversed. And keep in mind, we distribute our funds to our landlords on a monthly basis, and so by this point we had already given the money that we received to the landlord.
Oh, wow.
So now we had the decision of, do we go back to the landlord and ask them for all the money that we gave them? How do we handle it? And through our auditing process, we went back and we looked to see what could have prevented this. And sure enough, there was a red flag in the screening process that we didn't catch. Now, this landlord would have never known that we were the ones that didn't catch it. They would have thought that I got the luck of somebody who committed identity fraud and they're out of money. But we lead from a standpoint of integrity, and we believe in karma.
Right.
So what we ended up doing was we ended up not asking for that money back. We were transparent. We told the landlord that we feel like we're accountable for it. We didn't transfer the money. We ended up taking a hit on it. And it was a hard decision in the sense of, it hurt us financially, but it was the right decision, and it was a hard lesson to learn. Inspect what you expect, which is, but also hold yourself accountable.
So did it make you change your process, the way you screen these tenants?
Yeah, it ultimately, when we screen tenants now, we take nothing for granted. There are people whose professional career right now is to scam. And so now it's no longer the days of you send an application in and tell me that your landlord is Bob Jones and here's his phone number. You don't call Bob Jones. You go to a property appraiser. You got to go to the public records. You got to go find it.
You have to triangulate the data.
We dig and we dig and we dig and we dig until we get to where we know is legit. So
Interesting. So in your experience, what do the best property owners do differently than the ones who kind of struggle, even on similar properties?
Well, I would say ultimately, you take care of the property as if you were living in it, in the sense of, if we're talking from an owner standpoint, I always encourage them that repair cost is part of the game, right? And you think, I don't want to put too much in repairs, which we certainly don't want unneeded or unwanted repairs. However, the tenants are they're the biggest component in your success rate. And so making your property a property where a tenant wants to stay and wants to call their home and have that pride in ownership is ultimately going to make you more cash flow, more money in the long run. It might not feel great up front, but it always pays off in the end if you're putting the right repairs, the right upgrades and enhancements for the right tenant. I would say that's what they're doing.
Very cool. What systems or standards do you refuse to compromise on, even if when it costs you time, money, or convenience?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this one's easy for me. There's one standard that I don't necessarily understand that some of my competitors do, which is how many doors they allow one person to be responsible for. So I would say industry standard today is going to be somewhere between 75 to 100 doors is what their account manager, we'll call them, that's what ours is called, would be responsible for. We hold a standard to no more than 50. And we won't break that. And that's tough. It does cost you time and it does cost you money, because a lot of time goes into hiring and scaling up. A lot of the money and resources go into those people, and it also obviously limits how much you can make off of one person. However, we commit to service, and we can't deliver on service if we don't have the people. And while margins are thin in property management, the way I want to make margins is by making a little bit of money on a lot of people for a long time. I don't want to make margins through overloading somebody's plate, having retention to worry about, not being able to commit to the service, and then having to recycle that whole process all over again.
Got it.